bound into an Angothic spirit cask. Indris managed to recover the cask and denied Corajidin his prize. Corajidin escaped to Amnon, with Indris and his comrades in pursuit. Corajidin refused to admit defeat and formulated a plan for his colors to make a stand elsewhere. Before he would leave Amnon, Corajidin was betrayed by Thufan, his own master of assassins. Corajidin was nearly killed, but not before he saw his beloved son, Bellamandris, mortally wounded. Though Indris, Mari, and their allies were victorious, it was not without cost. Mari was cast out from her family, a family that faced an uncertain future on the political stage due to her father's failed schemes. There was no clear candidate to lead Shrīan, and the Iron League saw a weaker Shrīan, easy to conquer. The great houses and the 100 families knew their struggle had only begun. Camped far from Amnon, Corajidin was introduced to the emissary, Anjaldine, Indris's wife, who had been presumed dead, a servant of powerful and enigmatic masters. The emissary promised Corajidin much: power, majesty, and long life, but the price of these things was not discussed, and in desperation, Corajidin did not think to ask. Shortly after the events of Amnon, in the Shrīanese capital of Avenue, came the New Year's festival, and the time of ascension when the new government was elected. Acts of violence attributed to Iron League forces and the return of the exiles, political criminals who had been banished by the late Asran Vashni, threatened the balance and gave Corajidin the support he needed to continue his play for power. Indris, Mari, and their friends were enlisted to help discover what Corajidin had planned and to end it if possible. The brief peace Indris and Mari had hoped to enjoy was broken by their call to duty and by the ghosts of their own past. For Indris, it was the threat of the Sikh that loomed largest, and their continued interest in his growing abilities, and the pressure from his cousin, Roshana, to serve their house and see to its advancement. For Mari, it was the presence of her family and their agendas, the pull at her own ambitions and duty, and the arrival of an old lover who had taken a position in her father's household, a man who promised danger was coming. In return for significant portions of the exiles' wealth and their vows of allegiance, Corajidin bound the exiles to his purpose and began anew his plans for ascension to the role of Asran. The emissary tempted Corajidin with the help he needed to realize his goals, though her help came at a price. The emissary claimed to be able to deliver that which Corajidin desired most, the return of his son, Bellamandris, to be crowned as Asran, and the restoration of Corajidin's dead wife, Yashamin, who haunted his visions with whispered messages of vengeance. Blinded by his ambition, with the hope he could control his circumstance, Corajidin agreed, and Bellamandris was restored to health as the first of the emissary's promises. Worried by Corajidin's very feasible grab for the highest office in Shrīan, and by the presence of the exiles and their agenda, Indris, Mari, and their comrades discovered what they could by following the exiles and those who wore their colors. It became apparent that the exiles had planned significant military action, bolstered by the arcane support of witches, nomads, and bound demon elementals. In the ruins of the Masajin, where the emissary labored to free the witches, events came to a head when Corajidin learned from a nomad that it was Salasin Fe Vahine who had murdered his late wife. Further shocks came as Corajidin was elected Asran, and as a manipulative Rosha, and not Nazarafin, was elected to lead the Federationists. Pressed for time and short of options to check Corajidin's influence, the Federationists decided to sever Vahine from her awakening in order to have another Federationist Ran raised to the upper house of the Teshri. However, during the process, a faction of the Sikh, led by Master Zajin, interrupted the severance and took Indris, Feminsetri, and Vahine captive. Indris's comrades were unaware of the Sikhs' involvement and came to the conclusion that Indris, Feminsetri, and Vahine had been taken by Corajidin. Corajidin, who had requested Vahine be handed over to stand trial for murder, believed the Federationists had plotted to protect Vahine and rob him of vengeance. A parley to determine the truth of the matter and to forge some kind of peace was ruined when a